Welcome to Airway Exchange, the podcast for empowering educators and inspiring future CRNAs, a new series of Beyond the Mask supported by AANA.
We're your host team. I'm Greg Collins.
I'm Nikki D'Amico.
I'm Erin Martin.
And I'm Louisa Martin. We're here to support the community of CRNA educators with conversations to explore, learn, and grow.
To pursue excellence in the evolving field of nurse anesthesia education.
And to champion our students and enrich the future of the profession.
This is Airway Exchange.
Welcome to Airway Exchange, the podcast for nurse anesthesia educators. I am Erin Martin, and I am joined by my co-host, Greg Collins. How are you doing, Greg?
Hi, Erin. Great to see you again.
Good to see you.
And see you, actually. We're actually sitting close to one another, so that's unusual, but happy to be here.
In person. It's been a real treat. Our guest today, Dr. Yasmine Campbell, is a clinical associate professor in the nurse anesthesiology department at Florida International University and a fellow of the American Association of Nurse Anesthesiology. With 28 years of nursing experience, including 19 in anesthesiology, she's a two-time graduate of Barry University and holds certifications as a nurse educator and healthcare simulation educator, along with a postgraduate certificate in nursing education. And Yasmine, you've really made your mark in nurse anesthesia education. And again, we're very, very grateful for you being here with us today and excited to visit with you a little bit.
Thank you so much.
One of the things that you mentioned in one of your presentations was item analysis. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that in terms of how you're tackling that and some lessons that you've learned. We talked a little bit before we started recording about item analysis, and I want to get your take on that. Give me just a really quick elevator speech about your presentation that you did.
So the basis of analysis is very interesting because if you talk to every educator, they actually all do it differently. But I fell in love with item analysis when I did my postgraduate degree at USF in nursing education, when I actually learned what the numbers meant, why we do it, and the significance of it. And that's when I became the guru of grades are objective, they're not emotional. We need to do this blind so that there's no feelings in it. So that's my favorite spiel for everyone.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned this aspect of fairness. You and I talked a little bit about that. Give me your take on that, because I thought it was a great take.
When you study for an exam, you want credit for it. Why would I give you credit for a wrong answer?
I love that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, why would we give credit for a wrong answer? Some students believe, and I'm pretty sure it's generational, because I know to this day, I don't know what I've ever gotten wrong on an exam, other than if I was talking outside with my friends and they all said, oh no, that is not it, right? But standing outside and commiserating with your friends, we're all novices, right? The professional is inside. But when you give an exam and you do the item analysis and you truly know that you wrote that test, it's important to give the credit to the students for the knowledge that we are actually giving. So it's truly unfair to give credits for unfair answers or to, and I use this word horribly, they come in and it's like a negotiation. Well, I talked to Dr. So-and-so and he said, okay, did Miller or Nagel say it?
Right. Was it Dr. Miller?
Yeah, did you talk to Dr. Ronald Miller? Because that's the only one I want to hear from, And I'm pretty big on going straight from the text. They'll come with articles and such. And I said, I volunteered for 4 years at NBCRNA, and I can safely say that the textbook, we write it straight from the textbook. Using all those other sources or those little apps that you're using, that's not going to get you where you need to be. You really need to snuggle in with the textbooks. That's what they're for. We have an official list, stick to it. Because when the exam is written, we stick to it.
And I think that's a great reminder to us as faculty to write those tests from the texts. And I know in our program, we have lecturers, and maybe we have a subject matter expert who comes in to talk about a particular topic, and they have their presentation, they have their PowerPoint, the students get a copy of that, and when we write test questions from a lecture, sometimes something gets flipped around, or I think it's a great reminder of the importance of keeping the tests based in the books and based in the literature.
And they're also training for a marathon. And I call that marathon the CRNA. If you're going to train for a marathon, you got to have the tools that they use to make the marathon. So you have to use the list, and you also have to use the type of questions. So every year I go and review, okay, are they still using matching? Is it select 2? Is it select 3? Select 4? They have to practice. Because I remember the first time I took the CPC and they had select 2, select 4. I took that exam so long ago, there was only one answer. Now there's 2 to 4.
Yes.
And I went back to the faculty because I was part of the beta, and I said, listen, that test is on fire, and they're asking multiple answers. We need to up our game, or else we're not really preparing our students to run that marathon. You don't have to be first. You just need to finish.
Right. Right.
Right? And be successful, because everyone that crosses that line is successful. And that's my main goal. And I teach the senior education at the end for board preparation. So I'm a big part of that. And every year we tweak it so that we know who our audience is. We look at the C-scores. We know their weaknesses. And we say, okay, we're going to pound out on it. You are going to be uncomfortable. Anesthesia school is not comfortable. You're going to be uncomfortable. But I'm here. I already ran that marathon. I ran it differently, though. But I'm willing to help you run this new marathon.
And we have a training plan. The training plan is published. We know exactly the resources that they're pulling those questions from. I think that's a great takeaway, is that why divert from that if we know that that's the case? And also, as on the faculty end, we have a resource too. We have the NBCRNA provides the item writing workshops, and they have the item writing standards that we have reference to and have the ability to reference. And I think that that's a great thing of making what is already challenging not more easy, but much more structured, as you mentioned, and with evidence of success. I think that's the thing, too, that we know if you do A, B, and C, then you're going to be successful. You're going to finish the marathon.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's great.
You mentioned that you teach your board prep course, whatever it's called in your program.
Yes.
We all have different names for it. So as someone who is responsible for that portion of your program, are there any, of course we all want a magic bullet, but are there any things that you have found differentiates your students who are successful on the NCE from those who aren't? Or are there things that you're doing in that board preparation, that focused board preparation, that you have found to be useful and helping your students be successful?
So for me, I actually give test questions that are worth 0, but they are mandatory. You can't win without playing the game. So practice makes perfect. So I give 10 questions a day. So you come to my classes from 10 to 12. My questions open from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. You're responsible for doing 10 questions. You do not know the topic. You do not have any information, but you come into my class. You can either do it in class, or you can get up in the morning, take my 10 questions, brush your teeth, and get in the car and come. All right? But you are responsible to do my 10 questions every day. Those are practice questions, and as a bonus, I give you the rationale when you're done. You need to keep practicing. If you do not take the time to go through and keep practicing taking test questions, you're not going to win. You're not going to win. It's the art of test taking that actually makes you successful. Being able to discriminate between a right and a wrong answer. If you can't do that, you're not going to be successful on the exam. That's great.
That goes back to the marathon analogy again, too. Why would you go lift a bunch of weights if you want to run a marathon?
Right.
So why not do what it takes to run the marathon and run?
Absolutely.
And I think that's kind of the picture that you're painting for us there. You did mention in that, too, personalizing that a little bit in regard to their C score. So tell me kind of how you do that, and how does that matchup work?
So originally, we looked at C scores heavily, but now with the new data, I take it with a grain of salt because I don't know, because it's been exposed. We do use them, but for me now, knowing what I know with the knowledge, I'm glad that you got 550 or whatever you got. But for me, when you start my class, you're on even playing field. It doesn't matter. You're going to do the test every day. It means nothing. And if you don't do the test, when I go into Canvas and I look, I write you a letter. Just a reminder, this is mandatory. You will not get a grade from me in this course without finishing those questions. So you need to organize your time. 10 questions, that's about 20 minutes of your day. That's nothing. And I'm not even grading you on it. So you can willy-nilly it, but I know that you still had to read it. And I gave you a rationale.
That's great. What about a poor performer on the C? Would you change that at all?
No. I have found that a poor performer on the C, there are some with lack of knowledge, but most of them have some sort of event or test-taking anxiety when I've looked at it. Depending on the timing in which we take it in the actual program, so we actually do it right before a little bit before they start their senior year. Even though you think they should be ready, they're really not ready. So they've had most of the curriculum by the time they take the C, but they're still on training wheels on how to actually take the test. They have not taken enough questions to be really what I would say experts. So if they did badly, when I call them, first of all, I kind of wait a little bit because that first C score that we do in our program, I won't use the word that it means nothing, but it's just a baseline assessment. And sometimes it means nothing, right? Because we've had people fail the first one, and then when they get to senior seminar, they blow it out the water, right? Because they had that time to actually work on themselves. What happens after that semester is that they actually get almost 6 months. I'm going to use the word off, but it's not off. They begin working their DMP project, and they do a writing course, and they're all online. So they actually, we call that their mental break, right? They don't get to see us unless they see us in clinical. And they begin, I won't say getting their life back, but organizing. And during that time, it's amazing how they actually turn around. And then that's when my actual senior seminar class starts, and I begin the real preparation. And I will tell you, they get better and better and better. And I delay the test for almost like 3 to 4 weeks because I'm preparing them. And they're usually very scared because they know that when I shoot, I don't miss. Yeah. There's hardly any mistakes, as far as the test. So I'm pretty accurate on it. So although they're scared, they're actually developing their tests, taking skills.
It's a whole process, isn't
Yes.
it? It's not just knowing the information. It's knowing how to navigate the test and how to manage your own anxieties and make sure that you're in a space where your brain can work the way it's supposed to when you sit down to take that exam.
And you're calm and you're ready. We talk about sleep habits.
Good.
All of that went into it because if you were going to take the C and you were on the cardiac rotation, I bet you that person probably did worse than the person who was on regional and only had to go 5 hours a day, right? So all of those are factors. So I really don't believe that any of our residents have knowledge deficits. I believe it is what their environment is and their psyche is at the time.
Holistic. I think that's the right way to think of it. And unfortunately, these high stakes assessments that we give, whether it be the C or ultimately the NCE, that's a snapshot in time. It's difficult to say, particularly with the C exam. And we have the same thing in our program. We have poor performers that, historically in didactic had performed very, very well. And so we know they're capable. It's not a knowledge deficit, but what happened in that particular snapshot in time. As we inch a little bit closer to the NCE, we realize that snapshot now is much more meaningful and much more high stakes. And I love the idea of not only obviously preparing them didactically, but also preparing them mentally. What's your anxiety level and how are you preparing your body to be there and how are you preparing your brain to be there? Looking at it that way, I think, ultimately contributes to more success, but it also, I think, allows them to understand that while the stakes are very high, they're prepared. It's a matter of then what are you doing outside of your your didactic work that's going to prepare you. Are you sleeping well? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating right? Are you preparing mentally for this marathon to cross the finish line of the marathon at that point? Because now I've ran a marathon, and those last few miles are the most difficult miles, right?
Yes.
And so I think that that's where they are. And I think that what you do in those first 24 miles of a marathon in terms of fueling and in terms of doing things like that make or break you in that last few miles. So I think continuing your analogy of that, I think that's fantastic. Yeah. That's very, very meaningful.
Yasmine, you are on the Education Committee for the AANA. Tell us a bit about what the Education Committee's charge is and what some of your experiences have been.
Well, for the first couple of years, I came in at the time where we weren't sure if we were going to continue having what we call now EDGE. So our main focus was making it the best meeting ever that no one wants to miss.
Mission accomplished. We just had this conversation with our podcast team.
So for the last couple of years, that has been the mission. We put a lot of time into it, and they put a lot of time into us and believing in us to be able to make this meeting more meaningful for our members, our educators. We are a specialty subset within the AANA. We always hear, oh, there's 60,000 or 70,000 CRNAs. How many are educators? We have 661, our president said, right, who came to this meeting. Maybe about 500 or 550 are actual educators, and some of them are still home, right? So maybe there's about 1,000 of us. You know, we are very special.
It's a small fraction.
Yeah,
sure.
It's a very small fraction. And it was very important to acknowledge those CRNAs that are working on the future, that are developing future enhancements in our education. And that has been my main mission since I've been on the Education Committee. So I can tell you we've put a lot of work into that. Not only that, but actually choosing the meaningful topics and abstracts. Dr. Richie Flowers started the buckets, and that was really important. So where you see different topics at the bottom, we started that, and then we continued it and making more meaningful lunch spaces where people with like ideas can talk. Then we started Faculty Forum, making it a more positive experience that everyone can enjoy, and bringing the actual trends of anesthesia or the actual issues that affect us and our residents. And that was really, really important for the entire team. And it's been a lot of fun actually working and being able to create a meeting for the small subset of educators that it's just been an amazing ride.
Well, thank you for your work. And I want to point out that is a 100% volunteer position that you're in on the Education Committee.
It is volunteer.
And probably many times very thankless. So I think our audience here can all appreciate that effort that goes into that. And I'll tell you, we were comparing kind of the iterations of Assembly School faculty to ADCE and now to EDGE. And I love the trend that we're going in, and that hiccup that we had about maybe it's going away. And I think you guys really took that and ran with it and said, hey, we're going to make it better. We're going to make it a can't-miss event. And I think you've done that. And I think the attendance here suggests that you're successful at doing that. The faculty forum, I want to bring that up because that's always fun. I've probably been to maybe 6 or 7 of those faculty forums as a clinical educator and then as a full-time educator. And it's either the best hour of the week or it's an absolute disaster. And I will say that the last few years, the trend in moving that to be a little bit more pointed has been great. I think that there's much more meaningful conversations that come out of that. And so great move on that. Tell me kind of how that discussion around the faculty forum has gone down with the Education Committee.
So the actual surveys that everyone fills out regarding the meeting, we take them seriously. That is a whole meeting or two looking at the members' qualitative information. If you write down that you don't like the bathroom, we're looking at the next time the bathroom's got to be better. So and there was a lot of comments about the faculty forum. There was a lot of comments about what actual topics, what they wanted, and they compared it to other meetings. So basically it's all based on member feedback. And it works well. Like I said, this year we had 15 or 14 questions that was actually placed on the survey and given to us. And we used that to make lunch forums and to actually bring it to the big room, as I called it, but also allowing the open mic, because there was a lot of feedback. Well, we want the open mic, we want to be heard. That's when we said we got to do it both ways. I said I'll take 3 questions.
Smart.
And then 30 minutes so that people can be heard. That's what our educators want. They want to be heard, and this is the best soundstage because all the important people that run our organization are here.
That's right.
And I promise you that they're in that room and they're listening, whether they're sitting up front or hiding in the back. They're here.
One of the things we talked about earlier today was one of the great benefits of this meeting is that ability to network and tap into our colleagues and connect. And I think that the faculty forum actually was a great example of that with the discussion regarding the federal funding, the loan caps, and there were some really amazing ideas that were brought forward yesterday about, well, have you thought about this? And well, in our town we're doing this. And I thought that was a very, very useful discussion. So I really appreciate the open mic aspect of that, because I think it really did spurred a lot of ideas, and I think that was a really beneficial discussion that wouldn't have happened had that aspect not been available.
Yeah, absolutely, because things come up right before the week, and that closes down weeks before, and then we actually meet about it once or twice. How are we going to present this to our members? What are we doing? Make sure that they are heard. And I believe, I hope every member felt heard and felt seen in this meeting, because that was our only intention.
Yeah.
That's great. I think that faculty forum really serves as a barometer for what's important for people. I think that the cream rises to the top very, very quickly, in that when you get everybody in the same room, much more structured and much more guided than it has been historically. And I think it really allows those issues to come to the top and what's important and what's on people's mind. I think the federal funding of student loans is a great example of that, the way that got brought up. And just from the AANA, I can tell you, they listen. There's particular attention paid to those venues where people are able to get up and speak, and also good ideas. Like there's ideas that kind of came. I wasn't able to attend the forum, but heard the good ideas that came out of that, and I think that that's something that the AANA really is trying to listen to, and really trying to strategically think about how as an organization can we address this versus each individual program. The difficult thing about an organization of our size is the size, but also the great thing about that is the diversity of ideas that people have within that size. What's happening in Florida is probably different than what's happening in Minnesota, and definitely different than what's happening in Texas. And so I think that that's a great place for us to sit there and share those ideas, and also for the AANA to pick up on those and to realize maybe some different both strategic avenues, but also things in terms of what products can the AANA offer that might help offset some of that. How can we legislatively or regulatorily attack the problem and attack the concern? Or is it even really a concern? Obviously, the federal student funding thing is a concern, but there are other things that we may, in the boardroom of the AANA, really highly prioritize, and then we come to a meeting where we have people from all over the country, and we're like, no one's talking about this. Right. And so maybe we need to adjust our priorities and adjust our resources a little bit. So kudos for getting that out like you did. I think that's fantastic. Switching gears just a little bit, you and I had an interesting discussion. One of the themes that we've noticed as we've been sitting around talking about the program for EDGE 2026 is that in almost every forum that we've sat in, we've noticed a little hint of AI being in there somewhere. There have been AI topics that are very specific, and then almost everything there's been that mention. So tell me a little bit about your experience with AI, because we each have shared ours on this podcast before. So kind of tell me about where you started with AI and where you've landed.
So my relationship with AI, I wanted to break up with him the minute I met him. So on top of the senior education and board prep, I am the DMP guru at FIU.
Bless you. You wear a lot of hats.
Yes, I do. And the first time someone came to my office and pushed a button, bloop, there's the whole paper. My eyes open wide. Oh no, this program says it's not AI. I said, well, here we only use Turnitin, but thank you for showing me that. I couldn't believe it. They wrote
you
a couple
discovered the
words
Wizard of Oz in that very moment.
The whole paper came out, and I was like, everything that I worked for, now I just give a prompt? Wow. I struggled a lot with actually embracing it or even reading about it. All my other faculty members, ChatGPT is great. I used it for this. I used it for that. Every time I do something, I did this. No ChatGPT. I wrote this.
That was your
no
badge of pride.
My pride. But then I realized that they said their stress level was lower. I said, okay. I'll try it. But I'm still missing. Yeah, I did it. No ChatGPT. But unfortunately, our students use it the wrong way. They're not using it to enhance cognitive thinking. Because where I would have an idea about something and create the prompt to give me ideas, they're just using it to write an entire deliverable. And that's not how it should be used. It should be used to enhance grammar or to create an outline, perhaps assist with citations, but there's a lot of hallucinations and confabulations. So you really have to be careful with that. I'm finding that they're using it the wrong way, and there's nothing that we can really do. What are we going to do? Throw the whole entire cohort out? And that's going to actually have an impact on research. So that is my main concern with it. Where are we going with the future of research if we're not really doing the research and we're not putting the time in?
It's a great concern. I'm kind of in your camp also of being skeptical. We had an earlier conversation today with another guest and talked about the idea that really it can be a wonderful tool to augment what they're learning, but it shouldn't be replacing the work that students are doing. And I thought that was a really important distinction. I think what you highlight is the need for guardrails as well, and guidance and policy. We know in the education world, policy rules everything, right? So I think that's going to be something that we all as educators are really going to need to step up to and figure out how can we embrace this and figure out the right way to use it and guide our students in that effort. I don't know how we do that right, but I think it's definitely something we have to do.
I think to your point, the way we've kind of come about, and again, our program being initially hesitant and now slowly kind of creeping in the direction of how do we utilize it better, with lack of direction to the student or lack of guardrails, or that creates a void to which they're going to use it to create what's basically a plagiaristic deliverable, like you said, a plagiarized deliverable. So I think the ability to provide some direction, some guardrail, I think if you tell them how to use it, how to let it augment, as you said, Erin, I think that's a great way to put it. And also say, this is the work that I expect. I think that's what you're saying. I expect this. There's a reason why we put in the work on those D&P ideas. It's because we're training you to become a better clinician ultimately by being able to appraise a literature. And I think that that's the ultimate work that we want them to do, and that we don't want the machine to do that because of the faults and because of the concerns with that. I think that lack of direction creates a void in which there's potential for disaster. And I think the biggest disaster is ultimately their lack of learning. And I think that that's what we need to consider, is that what are they not learning with this? But again, one of our earlier guests really said, this is a tool that will change the way that research is done for the better. It allows a lot of the work that was time-consuming and the work that took years to get a manuscript together now shrinks that down to the point where it's going to improve timelines and things like that, will ultimately be very beneficial. So I think that's been a great, and we've asked almost all of our guests to share their AI experience, so I appreciate you doing that.
Yes.
That's helpful. What else you want to tell us, Yaz? Anything you want to leave us with today?
I look forward to seeing everyone at Edge in Dallas.
Absolutely.
Love it. Cannot wait. Well, I tell you, we are very fortunate to have you, present at Edge to do the work you're doing at FIU and contributing on the Education Committee. I think that you did a great job of highlighting the efforts of that committee, and you're to be commended, as is the Education Committee, for the work that's done to put on a program that's very successful, and I think will continue definitely into 2027, where we're all going to meet one another in Dallas again. I don't have to travel near as far for that one, so I'm quite excited. Cannot guarantee the weather's going to be better, but I can hope. I can cross my fingers and hope it can be beautiful.
Good. Let's hope for that. And please pass on our gratitude from Airway Exchange to the Education Committee for all of your efforts. It's making us all, I think we all have such a vested interest in nurse anesthesia education, and recognizing that we are the gateway to the profession, and you're helping us do that better. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.